When I got laid off, the first thing I thought about wasn't money. It was, who am I now? Now, I had spent decades being the person with that job, in that industry, with those titles. And in one short conversation, that was gone. The income, I could figure out. The identity part, that was harder. Hi, I'm Len, and welcome to my channel on managing life after 50. Today, I want to talk about what the layoff actually did to me, not just financially, but as a person, and what I've learned about rebuilding an identity when the one you've had for years or perhaps decades suddenly disappears. I graduated from university in the 1980s with a bachelor degree in biology. I had plans on attending medical school, which quickly shifted after my wife and I had our first child. So I pivoted and eventually found a position as a research associate at a hospital in Boston doing arthritis research. A few short years later, I relocated back to Virginia, where I grew up, and worked in cancer research. Now, fast forward 6 years, we moved to Northern Virginia area, and I found work at a biotech company, and a little later, to another lab research position at a much larger pharmaceutical company in Gaithersburg, Maryland. After 20 plus years of doing that, I then shifted entirely from the scientific lab setting to information technology and became a business analyst. And that eventually led to a career in R&D consulting. Now, I mention all of this to say that my job wasn't just what I did. Yes, on a day-to-day basis, it was how I introduced myself. It was my weekly calendar, my routine, my social world, my own sense of competence, and my reality. Now, incidentally, I also really need to add here that I don't have any regrets about life decisions I've made, both good, perhaps not so good, during my past or during that entire time. As I've often looked back and reflected at it, this was the path my life had to follow for me to become the person I am today. Yes, I know it sounds cliche, but I honestly and truly believe that. Indeed, in Filipino and Asian culture, work is deeply tied to worth, to family pride, to what you can provide. So losing that job wasn't just a professional setback, it had a cultural weight to it too. Now, I was pretty good at what I did, from work as a medical researcher to my job as an R&D consultant. That mattered to me, and then it just stopped. There's a particular kind of surreal feeling when you realize a chapter of your life has just ended in a meeting. What I thought would be a routine one-on-one meeting with my manager to provide a weekly update on projects and on deliverables suddenly and instantly changed the course and outlook of my entire future moving forward. Now, I didn't fall apart right away. I think I went to a kind of functional numbness, to be quite truthful. Handling the logistics, making calls, reaching out to my network of LinkedIn contacts and former colleagues, and just doing the things that you do. Yes, I felt a cold sweat, slight panic, as I was literally only 10 days away from being married when I received this rather devastating news. How in the world could I bring this terrible news up to my bride-to-be less than 2 weeks away from our wedding, I thought. But I did, immediately. And we said to ourselves, we can't let this news dampen our spirits. There was still a heck of a lot of last-minute planning that had to be done. We had family and guests coming in from out of town, and still a bit of work to be finalized with the wedding coordinator. So I decided that I'd worry about it all afterwards, when all was said and done. By the way, the wedding turned out pretty lovely, and it was perhaps the most joyous occasion of our lives together so far, celebrating with close friends and family. The falling apart came later, quietly, over months. Now, without work, I didn't know what to do with a Tuesday, let alone what I was going to plan for the rest of the week. Like most full-time employed people, I had always had a next thing, a project, a deliverable, a meeting. Suddenly, there was just open time, and I didn't know how to be in it. Yeah, sure, I could spend a few hours working out at the gym or working on my golf game, but that wouldn't work since I was saving those moments for my retirement years. Now, as is the case for many, so much of my professional world was tied to that job. When it quietly ended, that world quietly disappeared too. From the social aspect, the chats by the water cooler and the happy hours with colleagues, that all ended, as did monthly birthday outings that we did. And not long after, my friend's circle slowly became smaller and smaller. Because you see, over the many years, my work family also became a sort of second family to me. And my sons were now adults and basically out on their own. Looking back, I suppose this is when the depression started to really take hold. At the time, I just thought I was being lazy or ungrateful or weak. I didn't have the diagnosis yet. I didn't quite know what it was that I was dealing with. And though I had a good understanding of human physiology from my background and from my training, I knew very little about how the human mind operated and the psychological aspects around mental health. Up to this point, I thought I had lived a pretty great and interesting life. So little did I know that I would slip into an abyss, needing help to get out of it. There's also this thing where you don't want to admit it's hard. Again, in our culture, you don't want to be that person who couldn't handle it. So you perform okay. And that performance is exhausting. Day in and day out, you're sitting there waiting for the understudy to come in and fill your place. And there's no one there. You're alone. I eventually learned that I had to lose the job, lose the title to start figuring out who I actually was underneath it all. I think a lot of people, especially men, especially in Asian culture, don't really give themselves permission to grieve a job. It's often quickly on to the next one, and as soon as possible, right? But it's a real loss. The identity, the structure, the community, the purpose, that deserves to be grieved. And I needed to genuinely permit myself to do it. But before I could figure out what came next, before any self-reinvention would take place, I had to get honest about what I had actually lost, not just practically, but personally. The photography business isn't simply a pivot. It's me building something that belongs to me that no one can lay me off from. That matters more than I expected to. Now, if you're in the middle of this right now, give yourself permission to not have to answer just yet. The pressure to immediately pivot, immediately rebrand, immediately have a plan, that's not always helpful. Sometimes you just need to sit with the loss first. If you've been watching since my second video, you've now heard about the diagnoses, what daily life looks like, and where all this started. Next, I want to get into the business itself, what I'm actually building, and what that process actually looks like. If you've been through a layoff, especially after 50, I'd genuinely love to hear from you in the comments below. What was the hardest part? What helped? Let's actually talk about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.